Hi guys, how you doing? It is the showstopper, Mr. Leopard, and today I want to talk about a subject that not so many of us would be anticipating that will be a major discussion, but according to me, it's a major discussion. So I want to talk about the guy Jimmy Wanjigi. I talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. So in order for me to effectively discuss the subject of Jimmy Wanjigi, I have to take you very quickly to the United States and take you to 2016. And we will meet a guy there called Donald J. Trump. Now, I am arguing that Jimmy Wanjigi is the Donald Trump of Kenya, just that he is ahead of his time, and I will argue why he is ahead of his time. And I need to draw a few parallels, just about two. So the first parallel that I'll draw about Jimmy Wanjigi and Donald Trump is that, both of them are business moguls with vast business interests across the country. Part of those businesses being, enclaved within their own country's economy. So you have had Jimmy Wanjigi remove the lid on the can, and he has told us that he has done business with government for as long as he remembers. He was there during the Mwai Kibaki regime. It was his concept to have the SGR, and it was supposed to be a private enterprise, and he was supposed to pay rent to the government. The rail was supposed to run from Mombasa to Malaba. It was supposed to cost much less. He's spoken about partnerships that he was able to influence, whereby the government of China was supposed to donate a stadium to Kenya, and instead he said that money is better being channeled to the place where Kenya needs the most, and it is in road infrastructure as opposed to a stadium, and part of that money is what went to Thika Road, and he was an agent for that deal as a businessman. So I want to qualify that Jimmy Wanjigi is a top-notch, world-class businessman that I would easily put with a parallel to Donald Trump. He has said, I personally have no facts about that, he has said his business interests across other countries and across the world, Dubai and many of those other places that he mentioned. And so Donald Trump, golf courses around the world, and his interests in real estate and whatever other enterprises. So Jimmy Wanjigi is a typical Donald Trump in the Kenyan context. The difference between Jimmy Wanjigi and Donald Trump, which is the reason why I say that Jimmy Wanjigi is a man that is ahead of his time, is before I go there, both of them have like economical ideals and ideas on how the economies of their country can be transformed. So I've had Jimmy Wanjigi argue his 3 R's. He framed to say that it is all about rescue. You rescue people economically from poverty, and then you reform the unit, you reform the system, you reform everything around, and then you reposition to make it possible for the country and the players in the country to take their place on the global stage. When you listen to Donald Trump's campaign of 2016, you also hear those ideological perspectives on how country needs to be liberated, and his argument was simple: it is America first, that a lot of American taxpayers' money is being spent abroad to make people abroad comfortable at the expense of the American people. So two different arguments, but my point is that both of them embody some form of philosophy and a political message. So the major difference between the two of them is that Donald Trump actually had a history of poking his nose in the political space, but over and above that, he was a celebrity. Basically, Donald Trump was already a global phenomenon. He was already a celebrity across the country. So the country already knew him, not just by name, but the country knew him on account of his businesses, those Trump University and many of these other things. Trump had actually written a book together with the guy who wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad. So the big difference here is that Jimmy Wanjigi is coming from the shadows. Nobody really knew about him except until when he was under siege in 2017. And so Jimmy Wanjigi is ahead of his time to the extent that he is running for presidency at a time when he has not had the privilege to define who he is in the circles of the common mind and thinking of a Kenyan person. Otherwise, Jimmy Wanjigi was introduced to the political scene not by himself, not even by Raila Odinga, but by Uhuru government, when Uhuru government took siege of Jimmy Wanjigi, and even today is still being prompted to the national scale through persecution, like persecution by the state, and his name being mentioned in court and all that. So you need to ask yourself, so how was Jimmy Wanjigi introduced to the people? He was deliberately introduced to the people as the guy who has a lot of guns around him. Even in court, you hear now the court's ruling to say that is it the DCI who is in contempt of court and is supposed to go to jail for not returning the guns of Jimmy Wanjigi. So when you hear Jimmy Wanjigi, you hear the guy who has a lot of guns, and that is a message that was scripted deliberately by that political wing. I don't want to dig too much about it because somebody might ask me to present the facts of the table, and I may not put them on paper except what I have seen in the media. So I hope you've gotten my point, that he's ahead of his time to the extent that he was introduced to the Kenyan people as an oligarch, as a guy who is an underhand operative, almost being equated to, like the drug cartels and those kind of things. And he was being introduced that way deliberately because he had shown political interest, influence within the political circles in the Kibaki government, in the Uhuru government. He actually said that he put the Uhuru government in power, and in his own words and architecture, he says that he's actually the one who called Raila and told Raila that I have a template that can actually get this government out of power and install you. And today there's a little bit of sour grapes on account of the fact that he is saying that Raila betrayed him ideologically. So this is to prove the other point that I'm making, that actually Wanjigi is a political operative for the longest. He has, transcended across 3 political regimes of Kibaki, Uhuru, and even the NASA constellation. Which means that he is a guy who is not only politically inclined, but a guy with the financial muscle to call the shots on his own political agenda. That makes him a Donald Trump of today. But he is ahead of time in the sense that he has not been able to introduce himself to the people. In fact, I would argue that he would be better off going to take time to introduce himself politically to the people rather than sticking in ODM, at least for this particular dispensation. But if he's sticking in ODM is going to give him that platform to have conversations at the national stage, then so be it. After all, that is exactly what Donald Trump did. He went to the Republican Party, and people say that he will not get the traction of the people. He will not get the final vindication by the people. But then Donald Trump kept taking oxygen out of the room, and guys, Marco Rubio began falling by the side, Jeb Bush, they kept falling by the side until it was down to Ted Cruz and Donald Trump, and Donald Trump finally had the last say. So Jimmy Wanjigi is trying to pull a Donald Trump almost practically, but the difference is that there are a few demographics between the Kenyan constellation and the American constellation, and that is in terms of the maturity of the democracy, because in the United States, the democracy is already ripe. If you are a member of the Republican Party and you subject yourself to the process will automatically give the desired result at the end of the tunnel. Whereas here, there are players who can actually manipulate the system and determine which way it goes, which is exactly what Jimmy Wanjigi is trying to do today, saying that he is making sure that the constitution of ODM party is followed. He is trying to make sure that if you take a bid within the party, you can see the light of day, and that the system can actually bring birth to the right child that was envisaged in conception. And that's why he's talking about how the system is rigged and he wants to sort that out. So if you ask me at an ideological level, then I'll give a big kudos to Jimmy Wanjigi, to the extent that if it is true and we can collectively agree that the system is actually rigged and skewed from the very beginning, and if he, by putting together the ideas that he's putting together, and he fights the war effectively to the extent that he actually has the win at the end of the tunnel, then I will say that the gap between him being ahead of time and being in tandem with the Kenyan person will have narrowed significantly, that at that point in time, then I can say he is ready for this set of a democracy, or that this set and context of a democracy is ready for a Jimmy Wanjigi. So the battle is trying to bridge that gap, and I wish him well. I hope he gets the right guys to be able to fight that battle together with him. Otherwise, he's doing the right thing, if you ask me, though on the ODM part, he is a disruption. And I could choose, you know, I say I'm a guru. I could argue a case anyway, the same way lawyers say that the law is an ass. You can argue it any direction, anyway. You can spin it anyway. Now, if I were to spin for ODM against Jimmy Wanjigi, I have a few things that I can say and take it to the bank. If I say it, you follow it, then it can be done.